idea for all this really came from a dream?
Yes, it did.
I just don't want us to get demonetized.
Good evening and welcome to Nox Mente. Failed start. Tonight's guest is Adam Tarsis, longtime friend of the show, friend of ours. We've known him for years and years. Adam has been a registered nurse for 32 years, a family addiction crisis counselor for 22 years, and 17 years in patient advocacy. On the spiritual side of life, he's a trained shaman and has been teaching and guiding people in their healing path work for over 30 years. Adam, welcome to the show. Finally.
It's good to be here, finally.
Yay, Adam. I just adore you. And the more I speak with you, the
cooler he is.
The cooler you are, all of you, because you have DID. And I am utterly fascinated by that. I can sense the difference in different ones coming forward, and you're completely solid. Also, you're so solid, and so I don't know. You're literally one of the coolest people I know.
Thank you. I'm not great at taking compliments.
I know,
but really,
and I know that
I'll
too.
receive that with an open heart. Thank you.
I know you've told me that in the past, but I just want to say that because there's no end to fascinating conversations with you, and anyone that knows you knows this. And it's so when I read the bio, and when it said shaman, I didn't flinch. I flinch a lot of times when I see that word, and I did not at all. I do not flinch with you because you really do bring that forth. And one of the things I do think about when I think about that energy is someone that's able to traverse worlds and mindsets and all that, and you come inherently with that. So it's, I mean, it's true. And I'm happy to call you a shaman, a shamanic person.
It's I think from my perspective, it's a very solid and integral part of who I am, singularly and also collectively. And I got to say that without the shamanic training that I've had, and without having the mentors and the guidance that I've had on my own journey, I think my DID would be less of a blessing and more of a curse. I think it would be much more difficult to live with. But I was taught to really view it very much as just another part of my life, another mental or emotional faculty,
Yeah, it's definitely a gift in your case for sure. And it also has me during most interactions with you, even in text, it has me questioning a lot of times the voices and they're not like separate voices, but the hunches, intuitions, the feelings that arise that sometimes I don't associate with myself. And I speak about that a lot, about know yourself. And, I mean, it's a gnosis thing, and it's if you're looking to expand your consciousness, that's one of the things, it's one of the tenets. And it's just in interacting with you, I have had to do some reassessing, and that is that's like one of the many passive gifts of interactions with you, is that this brings forth ideas of self and identity at a whole different level when interacting with you, especially on the depth of information that the different ones within you live. Can you, to start out, because we always go with background on people to set a foundation, give us a little, walk people through what the idea is, the way you experience it, so that for people that are not familiar with it, and give us a little bit of a taste of that as we build the house.
Oh, wow. that's that's wow. Nobody's ever asked me to do that before. This is cool. I like new things, even when they're scary. New things are good, unless they're
Yes.
really a bad thing, you know. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, for anybody who doesn't know, DID, it means dissociative identity disorder. At one time, it was called multiple personality disorder, and is still referred to that way by many people. Um, and there are different levels of that. There are people that experience or are DID to the point where they're fragmented, which means that their core personality has fragmented into smaller, more two-dimensional pieces, and then when you know, um, and then there's DID like that I have, where I have actually complete other um, personality. So I in my early life, um, as a child, and I can remember it now, which I'll explain, but uh, I remember um, that we were pretty much always all of us. Um, eh, you know how kids have imaginary friends. I had imaginary friends too. They were just different versions of me, different parts of myself, given voice and expression, um, independently of like, say, my core identity, which is an odd thing for me to grasp sometimes, because even though I know there exists a core identity somewhere, I think because my trauma happened in utero, um, I never have really had a complete or solid sense of self that was singular. And I say that when I say I'm really I'm really saying we, but I is the acceptable term in our world, and so that's easier for frames of reference and communication. Um, and I experienced my DID. I went through a time where I experienced dissociative behavior, where I would disassociate and lose time. At one point in my life, in my late 20s and early 30s, I was actually living two complete different lives at the same time. One of those lives included a wife and children, and one of them didn't. And so I've had some experiences that I think, when viewed through a negative lens, could be viewed as very negative. Um, but now it's not so much that where I lose time, but I've come a really long way in my own path work and in my own therapeutic healing. And I think of myself more now as a healed DID. I'm able to be co-conscious with several of my alters at one time, which just means I'm basically, they share their perspective and their understanding of situations taking place around me. So it's kind of like having a constant data stream in my head. Being able to see situations from multiple perspectives at the same time is a unique advantage in a hospital or a therapeutic setting. And to be honest, the more I've found my own solid footing and my own comfort level with who we are as an identity collectively, the more that served to make me good as a nurse and good as a counselor. And honestly, I think just in a lot of ways, it's helped me to be a better person, just in the sense that it's allowed me a level of self exploration that I think maybe other people kind of put off a little bit in their life. And
Yeah,
I had to go through mine out of self preservation.
yeah.
So
And I've only known you since you've had it all together, and there's been some sense of cohesion, and in the Adam Tarsis, or you seem to be the main speaker. How many are there? Have you counted?
um,
And also, a follow up here is, you mentioned the nursery and stuff. So there are some that are constantly, you're having babies, so to speak.
well, actually, yeah. I refer to wow, this is more difficult than I thought. I really don't talk a lot about these things from my personal perspective. This is new for me, so bear with me a little, please.
Feel free to decline any
Absolutely,
queries
Adam.
if you
Yeah.
want. Yeah, absolutely.
My internal world, and when I refer to my system, I'm talking about really how we're organized. And in my system, we're numeric, and like we exist in cells. So um I am my system's presenter. Our job, or my job rather, is to translate and to mediate. I'm the peacemaker. I'm the one that does all the diplomatic stuff. So I'm built to be the interface with the rest of the world for them, because in my internal world, my system doesn't use words at all. When words are in my system, they literally appear like they are in comic books. So I translate the internal language that you have, which is all usually all just on a very spiritual, uh, intuitive level. Sometimes it's patterns and colors, and sometimes it's just a vibration, and that translates for me. I translate that to words for this world, and I do the same thing for the things in this world. I translate it back to them. Um, so, but to do that, I'm a five. There are five versions of Adam that are the presenter, and we are considered in my system a single identity, even though there's five of us. But it takes five of us to do this job. It's five different versions of us that make up the vibration that is Adam. So when I become co-conscious with another personality, it changes that vibration. And then that changes our shape, the shape that we take internally. So in my system, like I said, it's numeric. I'm a five. And but I also have ones and threes, and I have even numbers that are, twos, fours, and sixes. We go up to the number 13. 13s are unique numbers because they're the numbers of change and rebirth equally. They're also the numbers of growth and rebirth. Um, you know, and then I also have aspects, personalities in my system that I have group personalities that have group identity. I have a group that we refer to as the writers and the staff, and their sole purpose is to record all of our history because they're responsible for our continuity internally and externally. So it used to be, when my system was unhealthy, when there was a lot of spiritual wounding still in my system, their job was to rewrite memories. So that when I lost time, there could be, a bandage over the sucking chest wound that had become my life. um, and you got to have a sense of humor about it to heal. You have to be able to laugh at the
Yeah.
crazy that it does to you. But the truth is, like, I wouldn't trade. I wouldn't trade. I have no idea what it's like to be a single identity person. And to me, that seems really scary. Like, I have no understanding of that at all.
This is I thank you so much for this. I think this is very, very, very illuminating for people out there, and possibly people that may be experiencing anything similar and are not sure what they're experiencing. And I think there are more out there than we know.
I statistically, it's misdiagnosed very often. And I've met other DID people. I've been in group with them. I've been in single therapy with them, both as a therapist and as a patient. And I have to say that it's just as individual meeting somebody else with DID as it is meeting a single identity person, because how other people experience their multiplicity is just as unique to me as the way I experience mine usually is to them. I have met multiples who experience their multiplicity very similarly, but there are like key elements that are very different. And so I think it's that same flavor of meeting people when it comes to DID people. So like, I assume, I don't know, but I assume that that when SIDS people, single identity people, when single sorry, when single identity people, when you're experiencing those different facets of your emotions, or there's different facets of your deeper core self, and those other voices of reason or not so reason, um, I suspect really what's happening is you are hearing those things that for me I observe consciously, but for you are unconscious interactions with your higher self and the other portions of yourself working out your daily thing.
The elves in the background take care of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like my background elves just wear brightly colored uniforms and
Well,
and are very loud. Yours are quiet and sneaky. I don't know.
right. We don't come. They don't come out unless there's some, something to come
Yeah.
out for.
Yeah,
I
I
just
don't know.
wanted to clarify for the listener in the audience that your numbering system is a classification of a type of personality under which there can be multiple versions of these.
Yep.
And the types that are from 1 to 13, indicating 13 different types of personalities. Just, I wanted to make that clear. You breezed by it, and I think that's really interesting. And I'm not trying to bring it back up to talk about. I'm just clarifying for everyone what you meant.
No, that's fine. Like I said, I don't normally talk about this aspect of my life. It's
Right, which
really
is why I
super
wanted
private.
to clarify it.
So, I don't have a lot of experience at discussing it outside of a therapeutic setting, and so I
Yeah.
think I'm kind of excited and apprehensive, and sometimes I have one speed. I have a friend that has told me a couple of times, "You got to slow down. I literally cannot listen as fast as you're talking." So, if if I breeze by something really quickly, feel free to ask for clarification or more
Oh, I
information.
have no
You know,
problem with that. Solaris Blue Raven's a good
cool.
friend of mine, and she is a speed talker.
Yeah, my mother says that on even a good day, I can suck the oxygen out of a room without trying. So, and I just figured because there's a lot of us, and we all have something to say, and we spent like a lot of our life where so many of us had tape over our mouths, physically and metaphorically.
Yeah.
So I think because there came a point where it was becoming obvious that we were a lot of other people, and it
Hmm.
became obvious to us that other people were not built like we were built, that there were differences and there were things that we couldn't account for. And
Well,
so at some point, and I think it happened around the age of 8, 7 or
oh,
8, I think we decided collectively that whoever our presenter was at that time um, needed to forget that we were all of us because it was safer. It was
yeah.
safer to be seen as a single person. And so one of the reasons that um, it was so difficult for me to get a proper diagnosis to actually begin the therapeutic process that I needed to begin to heal was that we became adept at appearing like one person. A lot of the
Mm,
differentiation between us didn't start until the healing started because we're just really good at mimicking one person,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And see, so much of speaking with you has brought up a lot of my own personal stuff and internal protective mechanisms where, and I had told you this privately, where I've questioned myself because I get a lot of what I call downloaded information. And just knowing you has made me rethink a lot about the structure of my own psyche and my own idea of personhood. And for that, I cherish you. I just love you. And
Thank
so,
you.
but I wanted to set that foundation for this show because you do freely in normal conversation, at least with me, you do mention there are things you say that if someone doesn't understand this perspective, and especially since we're jumping into dreams and all that, that's going to be juicy. it may be confusing. And so this is a big part of you, and this is a part I celebrate. So this is, I mean, this is what this is valuable in a way that I think is hard to actually pin down in words. So with that said, let's move into give us an idea of your early childhood, the normal Nox Mente stuff that jumps forward here with this. What were the things that inspired you as far back as you can recall? What relationship did you have with nature, and how did all this early functioning play out within your ideas of the reality we're living in?
Oh, wow. Okay.
I know that's a
let
lot, but I know
me
you have the
let
processing
me
power.
let me open this up with before I can tell you the answer to any of that. I have to tell you that I tell you a little bit about my mom. Um, when my mom was she was 17, and she was 7.5 months pregnant with me, and she was shot. It was an accident. She was shot by my father, and my mother and I died collectively. We died 3 times, once in the ambulance and twice on the operating table. The night that she was shot, and here's some woo. The night that she was shot, this is in 1968, in the month of November, happened to be the night of the doctor's ball, and the doctor that examined her and performed the surgery that saved her life, it was an experimental surgery, had only just been approved for human trials, and my mom was like the out of the frying pan into the fire trial. And so they took veins from her legs to repair the artery in her neck where she had been shot. Um, but during that
This is
process,
amazing.
but
Jeez,
during that
Adam.
process, um, they lost me. They lost me a couple times, and they were afraid to tell her because when she first came out of surgery, they hadn't been able to find a heartbeat for me for a while, and they were afraid to tell her uh, that they thought she might have lost the baby because they thought that would uh, really really damage her own chances for recovery. Um, so uh, I ended up being born, and I was 2.5 months early, and I've been obnoxious ever since. So, um, so like my coming into this world was a rough trip. It was not a good beam in. Um, but I actually do have I have memory of that. Um,
Can you describe what fragments of the memory are still lingering?
um, the only words that really have ever resonated, because there's no way to explain to you an image that's not an image. Or I mean, I don't really know how I would explain to you, but the sense of it was, and the thing that has lingered with me, and the thing that has really stayed with me, and is the incredible simplistic and straightforward complexity of how our creation is strung together. And I think that stayed with me, that vibration and that energy stayed with me. I remember being given the choice that I could come into this world if I wanted to, or I could skip it. And I was shown everything, that every possibility that I would live through, everything that would be good, bad, or indifferent, and I still chose to show up here. Um, sometimes in the past, I've questioned why, but I think I have a good sense of why. Um, because I wanted to carry that vibration with me, that sense of connectedness. And that's really how I see my gift. That's how I really see my multiplicity. It lets me pour out a part of myself into the world. And the response to that, when I do, is that on an internal level, my shape changes and I feel and see and perceive the connection um, between things, between people and situations. And, so it's kind of like the best diagnostic tool I could have.
Yeah, there's so much here that just makes my mind swim. In part, I wonder sometimes if this is not the state in which you exist is not more of the natural state than this kind of limited one identity. And I've wondered this often when I think about my own coming into this plane story, and with a sense of exactly, I didn't come in, I didn't just wake up and, come to consciousness slowly. I came in as I am, and there was always a strangeness to it, but also a separation, like I feel separated from something. Uh,
I
so that's what I was trying to understand with what you're saying, which there's something in there that seems really relevant for me personally, at least.
I could see that. I have said a couple of times, and my system, I numbered it and made it numeric, but the geometric pattern that it makes, the vibration that it makes, is the vibration that I brought back with me. The vibration that I came into this world with, the shape of it is the
Hmm.
same. It's
Yes.
it's that forge of creation shape, and I don't know how to call it anything else, and I don't know what I would call it if I called it anything else. It's just that's what it is.
I don't think you've ever told me this, but I've always pictured it as hexagons, like hexagonal cubes.
It is hexagonal cubes, and I
That's
have
how I've
never
seen
told you
it.
that.
Interesting. We're all getting the
See,
visual.
yeah, like I never really shared that with anybody. I try and keep, actually, I just try, honestly, I just don't talk about it a lot in my personal life. It can make people really uncomfortable. And I already am weirdly socially awkward, so I don't like to, raise the level of discomfort if I can willingly not do that. And
I think it's cool. So.
I know, like, I really believe, I really believe that every person on the face of the planet is experiencing themselves multidimensionally right
Hmm.
now. It's
Yes.
just the only difference is I don't have the same level of uh veils in place as other people. And I've always kind of thought that for me, it's because I'm not as tightly bound to this world because of so many deaths before my birth, and I've had a couple since my birth. So I've always kind of thought that played into it on a spiritual, energetic level some. Because everybody is multidimensional. I know because I can see it around everyone.
Yes. Yes.
It's
That's
like
what I'm saying.
everybody is multidimensional.
Yeah.
But I don't think everybody's aware of it, because I think if you're like hyper aware of it, and I think I'm aware of it, but I don't think I'm hyper aware of it. But I think if you were hyper aware of it, you could step into any lifetime that you want, because consciousness is fluid. And I from my perspective, I can't speak for anyone else, but in order for karma to actually work and be a functioning system, you can't live only one lifetime at a time. It won't work that way.
Right.
So what's actually happening is you're living all your possible lifetimes at the same time, all the time.
Yes.
That's why there are people that can have like zero karma in their natal charts, like Suzanne and Jerry. That's why instant karma can happen, because it's part of that constant flow network. It's like perpetual motion, and it has to be in perpetual motion or it wouldn't work at all. And there has to be karma because it's part of spiritual evolution. So,
It's, this is when I was talking earlier, and this is one of the things that just in being in contact with you, and as you know, just being in contact, there's like a symbiosis that happen energetically. And it's one of these things I was always in tune with. But when I step into my creative self, whether I'm painting or I mean, even if it's a tarot reading or even if it's decorating a room, not just doing like fine art, there's another me functioning. I always say, this is the thing. I am not. I didn't do it. I didn't do that painting. I didn't do that video. I didn't do that. And it's always confused people. But what I mean by that is I've whatever I am is niche. I step aside and I allow this energy to flow and I recognize it. So I recognize and I call it the muse, but I recognize it when it steps in and then there's other times when say uh, I feel anger rising within me. And that always feels separate to me than say my main niche or the muse energy that comes through in the creative stuff. And in my interactions with you, I have started to, and I of course believe we're multidimensional. So this is the core of everything anyway. I've started to see these, and then I'm Jungian, so I started to see all this in just another way that is almost like mm, it's like the shards of the dark crystal, right? It all pieces together eventually to this greater whole. And through all these conversations on Nox Mente and elsewhere, it it just is becoming more apparent to me. And so then you come into my plane and you are just out there with this. And you've rewritten the way in which I started seeing possession, which is my biggest thing, Adam, as you know, right now. And so I knew going into this Nox Mente, which I'm so glad it's not on your birthday, as it was planned, that this was going to be extra special because you and I have gotten close since then. Close, I feel close to you. So with all this kind of setup, where's the fear factor in, or so we're still back in developing years to build this foundation. Where is the fear factor there? Did you early on in your life, like some kids have fear of the thing under the bed or the dark, what were things that were affecting you on a level that caused those types of chemical reactions?
Wow. Yeah, I never really experienced like I never really had like I was never afraid of the dark uh, or afraid of like heights or any stuff like that. But I did grow up where I had an extended family where there was a lot of drinking and a lot of anger. So if anything, I think I had fear over physical violence. Um, because it was a very common thread. I have often told people that I learned how to be a decent man by watching my uncles and doing the exact opposite of them. And that's not to say that they didn't have good qualities and there weren't good aspects of them. There most certainly were. But I'm lucky, blessed, and grateful to have had a mother that taught me at a very early age, like around 4, that you love the people who are your family because they're your family, but nothing in life requires you to like the person that they are. And that when their behavior is bad, it's okay to say, that sucks. So I think for me, I think there's definitely that on an at home daily basis. Um, there was constantly kind of this threat of physical violence um, from not immediate family, but from extended family, and they were a really big part of our lives. because of my mother's disability. So so they were around a lot, and also just as a not things not connected to my immediate family also were things that I experienced outside and away from our home. And I'm a satanic ritual abuse survivor, so there was also this other aspect of my life taking place where I was horribly abused, along with other children in the town that I live in by a family coven here, a satanic coven, obviously. So so there was that. But as far as things that go bump in the night, supernatural stuff has never really frightened me. But to tell you the truth, I think it's just because real world things were far more frightening than supernatural things.
Yeah, isn't that a deeper truth too?
Yeah, yeah.
It is definitely something I can always try to get back to, is that when we get too far in the woo, I like to dial it back to real world, and of course, air quotes, real world examples of stuff. Uh, okay, so with all this and in this early period, what was your dream world like? How were you experiencing that scape?
Oh wow. When I was younger, um, I don't really recall. Um, I don't really recall dreaming like when I was really little. Um, I don't. I don't think I really started clearly dreaming probably until about the age of 5. I mean, I know I dreamt before that, but I never really remembered them. To me, I think at that age, at those ages, it's kind of like it is to me now. I mean, I often now, as even as as a younger person and as a teenager and as an adult, I frequently will have that moment when I'm asleep and I'm dreaming. I'm like, ah, crap, I'm dreaming again. Um, and it's not. I don't mean that necessarily as a bad thing. Like, oh, that's terrible. Um, but to you have uh, that awareness, just that awareness that you're asleep. And sometimes I've experienced that where I'm completely conscious in the dreaming world. But for me, it's a lot less like let me take control of it, and more like let's see where all of this is going. So I think I've had that level of exploration on a dream level, uh, just as a younger person and then as an adult, but really as a young kid, I think really for me my dreams were a lot just like escaping into literature or television, you know. Um, yeah.
Did you so with that, did you and just to kinda knock out this early stuff, did you with literature and television stuff, did you enjoy were there cartoons and movies and stuff like
Um,
that? I think
Comic books.
D&D, right?
Well, D&D when I was older, when I was a
Yeah,
teenage
when it
person,
came on scene, yeah.
but uh, but honestly, my mom really believed in um, knowledge, and she really believed that reading was good for you, and she believed that diversity in music was good for you. So we grew up with classical music and classical country and western and pop and the rock and roll of her era and all of that stuff. And I had older cousins, so the same with music of their era. And but reading is something that I've always loved. I was I probably was reading and sneaking books like in my bedroom with the flashlight probably as early as 4. So um my favorite book was for a long time. My favorite book was David Copperfield. I think I read it the first time when I was 5, and then I discovered Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes. And so I spent a lovely amount of time reading. I read a lot of classics. As a matter of fact, I didn't read. I never read a science fiction or fantasy book until I was a teenager. My first one was a Robert Heinlein book called Glory Road, and it's more sci fantasy and really dated. Like it 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 would be considered a bad book nowadays because the way it's put forth is very dated. Um, but I didn't read like my first fantasy science fiction esque type novel or book until I was 16. So other than that, the only thing I like comic books. I read a lot of comic books. It was comic,
This
but
makes a lot of sense though, Adam, because you're so intelligent, and
but
which is, but you what?
I was gonna say like comic books for me were like this weird treat because like I didn't really because like I said, I reached this age where the presenter, the one of us that's out in this world all the time, had to forget about all the rest of us. And so it was really funny that like my favorite some of my favorite superheroes, really it's not about like their powers or anything like that. It's about like for me, for instance, Superman's like three different people. I totally rocked with that as a kid because he's like Superman, which is this guy that runs around saving the world, and he's this this Kansas farm boy named Clark, and also he's Kal-El, who's this the last son of a dead planet. So they're like really three different people, and comic books for me at that time, that was a very complex thing. Um, and I think really just reading comic books is what spurred me on to start reading even more and more stuff. So
You as always, you bring up such an important point here, and I say it a lot, where I've lived a million lives within this one.
mhm.
And this really just illustrates that you can be a lot of different people just right now, you know I, w- with the titles you've got, with being a person at work, whatever that title is, and the person off, and the person that plays with this group of friends, and then oftentimes you're a different person with other people.
Right?
And people forget and gloss over the fact that these are all different parts of
Like work me
yourself
is nothing like casual
interacting.
me. Same with you, I
Yes,
suspect, right?
yes,
Like
absolutely.
that person that goes to work and works 9 to 5 or works whatever your shift is at your job, how you are with people at work on some level is always going to be slightly disingenuous unless you're actually friends with them. Because your friends at work are not the friends you have outside and away from work. And I think as human beings, we have a tendency to compartmentalize our lives to some degree because I believe that that just makes it more manageable for us. It's like you don't have
And
to worry about what Bob and Fred were discussing in the meeting until tomorrow morning. So work guy gets shut off at 5 when you walk out the door, you
yeah,
know?
I mean,
So,
it's a big thing when but what I'm saying here too is how this is common. This is mostly how people navigate the landscape. And so, and they somehow shut down the idea that these are all components to the them, the they, that is the bigger they that's functioning.
oh yeah,
And yet, it's like they would never think that these are actually, developed pieces of themselves that make that all function. And this is where you redefined how I'm viewing myself now. And and so, yeah, I mean, it's so funny, and it's out there.
I kind of feel like human beings, we get programmed our entire lives to think a certain way and see a certain way. And we, I think, get taught by all the constant programming that we're bombarded with. We get taught to discount ourselves, to discount our
Mhm.
intuition,
Mhm.
to automatically assume if we're experiencing a new part of ourselves that must be something bad. I must go get a pill. I must go to the doctor. And I'm not saying that those are not valid concerns because they should be. But when there's no mental illness, when there's no wackadoo craziness, um, the reality is, I think human beings, I think we experience different parts of ourselves all the time. We're just so very, very taught to have a rigid sense of self, to have this sense of self that has to fit into a box and has to have these labels and has to be and exist only in this certain way. Um, and I think I was having to embrace my multiplicity in order to be able to heal really changed for me, um, how I viewed other people and how I viewed the world. I finally came to a place, and that's not always the case because I have bad days like everyone else. I have days where my short-tempered self is the person that everyone has to deal with, and I'm sorry for that, but it happens. Same way it happens with them, you know. But for me, it
I
really did change how I saw other people because it really changed how I saw other people's behavior because I started to see underneath the behavior and I started to see things like this particular behavior is coming from this lack, it's coming from this wounded place in the spirit, and it is, you can't be an asshole to people when you can see the harm that you do literally.
absolutely.
And I
It,
think I finally came to a place where I just said, you know what? This is just a part of who I am, who we are. And however I'm choosing to define that, I'm defining it in a way that brings me peace and brings me harmony and brings me joy. So I allow it to inform me about people and where they're at and kind of what's going on with them. So it has made me able to be understanding of behaviors when the behavior is not what's really happening in the situation.
it's one of the goals that Jung talks about, and uh, in the conversations with the soul, and like this greater idea in gnosis magic, especially, is changing consciousness at will. So,
Hmm.
really, this is in the end, this is what that represents. It's about being conscious
Gnosis
of.
magic, I like.
Absolutely, and it's about allowing these different aspects of self to come out and interact and do what they do.
Well,
And
sorry,
no, no, carry on.
I was just going to say, well, I think it's important for that to happen because I think it's important that those other parts of self are recognized so that they can feel validated. It's like, I don't need anyone else's validation, but I don't need anyone else's validation because we're perfectly capable of being valid on our own. But it took a lot of time for us to learn that,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And and so I think it's important when you're experiencing those other part of yourselves to know that that voice needs to be heard as much as your voice does, and to know that that's still potentially a part of you. And there are ways to evaluate that.
Well, how does this play out? And so let's move into the general dream territory as you experience it, as you've experienced it moving forward and into the nowness. So, since you already have a deep sense of selves with the big S here, uh so their voices, and you don't have to do all that work that a lot of people spend their whole lifetime trying to understand. Oh, this is aspects of my sensate, or this is aspects of my feeling, and then naming them, because that's part of the Jungian analysis situation.
Which is funny about that because in my system, in order to be real, you have to have it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, and it's embedded in the Jungian paradigm. It's so, and it's a magical thing. People It changes people's lives when they do it, when they name their shadow, and if the shadow has,
Well,
aspects of itself under it.
and I think as a therapist, one of the things I see people struggle with the most is accepting that they have a shadow, that there is a shadow, that they need to embrace it. Because here's a truth, and it's just a plain and simple one, and it's that the shadow part of you is what carried you through every shitty thing you ever have gone through. And you need to embrace it and you need to accept it for what it is because that was your strength in the darkness. So you have to really acknowledge that. And in order to move beyond the negative effect of it and experience the benefit, you have to embrace it as part of yourself.
Absolutely. It's major work, and it's really at the ground level, I think. So walk us through what your normal dreamscape is now with all this, and how. So, and specifically, do you get, so what's the dreamscape look like, the architecture of it, sensate, all that. And then also, are you able to, I know you get lucid and all that. So what's your experience with separation from your physical avatar uh, through high lucidity, like astral projection and all that?
Oh, actually,
Because I know
hmm.
having all the deaths.
Okay, I'm not sure how to like uh astral projection. I'm not sure if I really if I do believe in it. I'm not sure that I've ever actually experienced it exactly. Um I've often thought that maybe what I'm experiencing is a form of remote viewing or a form of bilocation, at least on an energetic level.
That's the word
Because
I wanted to use, Adam.
like for instance, I've done path work and energy work and healing work with Jerry, and I've done it from here in my house and been uh, manifest vibrationally in his house, and he's been able to like go, whoa, no, dude, I can actually feel that. And having me not told him that I'm checking in on you, man, you know, so
It happens often.
yeah, well, I check on you often because I have this weird thing. I am so hyper protective of people I care about. I cannot not check on them to make sure that if there's anything in their energetic field that where there's a lack and I can provide a support.
You're
I
doing
don't
it right
force
now.
anything on anyone. I make it available to them in their energetic field. And so that when their higher self becomes aware that there is support or there's a vibration of healing present for them, that they can just take that up because it's there.
Mhm.
And I do that a lot with the people that I'm close to. And the truth is, I kind of in a very general way, I love pretty much everybody. And I mean, in that general way. But like my actual circle of close friends is very small, and it's not because I'm opposed to people, but it's because I, Jerry said it really well. He said to me a couple weeks ago, I was talking about a project that I'm working on, um, and he said to me, he said, because I had told him this project was becoming more collaborative, and he said, well, that's because you don't do anything when you're not in a group. And it made me laugh because I'm like, okay, I'm the multiple, and I just had
That's
to have that pointed out to me. What the
hilarious.
hell? But it's really really accurate, and I think so. Like I keep my circle of friends. There's like a core group of friends that are friends, and then there are other friends that are like a step further away than they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so I do when it comes to people that I feel genuine close to, because to be honest, it happens rarely. It's rare that I genuinely click with somebody on a level that feels natural to me, that is not about me changing shape in order to fit the situation, because I do that all the time. Um, you know, when you can be 5 different people crossing a room when you're in a crowd of people, that's a helpful skill. And every actor, every businessman, every professional probably has that skill to some degree. You don't
Oh
even need
yeah,
to be a
it's
multiple, you just because it's that thing where you're interacting with this group of people and you need to be whatever it is they need you to be at that moment, so you shift and
yes.
change who you are. And it's like, I really just believe that I'm a lot more cognizant of that process, and for me, there are extra people involved in that process because of the multiplicity. So I don't really think it's all that, I don't think it's all super mystical and everything. I think everybody does it. Um,
Right, that's what I was saying earlier, and except for the fact that you have kind of people had to master it. People have had to, work at it, and somehow you came in already at this level, and so that's what I was acknowledging. I think that, I mean, I've seen it in all the princes literature where you're teaching young princes this and young rulership this, and it's in it's in all the stuff with NLP and mirroring of how one needs to navigate the terrain in different ways to be uh to get a higher sense of lucidity in it in order to be the one in the room that's actually orchestrating some real movement, orchestrating a real sense of lucidity. I don't know how else to put that because sometimes that can sound ugly and controlling, and I don't want to go there because I think it's a masterful.
I don't think it's necessarily about controlling, because it isn't
No,
control.
not with you, Adam, but you know
because I
what I'm
think
talking about.
I do, and what I think is when you're coming at it from from a healthy place, it's it's not control over what is outside of you. It's control of what is within you. It's stepping up and taking the reins, and it's riding the current of the terrain you're in, and it's using the terrain to your advantage. And that's not manipulative, by the way. That's just survival. And when you're doing doing that, pardon me, doing that from a healed and positive place, you're not you're not damaging the spiritual terrain. You're not bringing harm to anyone else. You're moving through that situation to the best of your capability. And when that's always coming from a positive place, it's not going to create a negative vibration. You don't get negative from doing
And this
positive.
is where
So
frequency really breaks down.
absolutely.
One can feel it. And
Yeah.
just as you were talking about with the Jerry example earlier, and I've certainly had this with you. I mean, you had me zinging that time we spent hours talking.
I
So
you know, and Suzanne is one of my dear friends. And she and I have had so many of those revelatory conversations where things just cross back and forth between us, where we're both getting like struck by those inspiration particles and having those really deeply profound moments. And so I have to say that like I've experienced those moments with Jerry, and I've experienced those moments with you as well. So I'm glad that happens for you, and I'm even more glad that that still happens for me, because it just proves to me that that there's, I'm still growing, and I'm happy for that. I said to Suzanne earlier today, I'm one of those people that really believes that if you wake up one morning and you don't have a single challenge or a single single bit of adversity or a single anything that makes you feel in any way impeded, then you might have done something wrong, because in order for you to grow, you should always be challenged somewhere in your life. And so I think it's important. And I think when you're moving through all those situations and you're moving from a positive place, you don't create a negative vibration, uh, because what you're putting out is positive. And I always like to tell people that human beings are not magnets, and when it comes to manifestation, opposites do not attract. And so, if you're trying to manifest something positive into your life, you need to remember that it's birds of a feather, um, go together, because when you're focused on the positive, it's the positive vibration that you're attracting. When you're too focused on whatever's negative in your life, and that's the thing that you're repelling. I've often thought that the reason they teach grade school kids about magnets is so that they get the wrong idea about attraction right away, so they can nip that manifestation in the bud, you know?
that's significant. Well, we know that that's all, the indoctrination and this kind of inverse through the mirror kind of experience that a lot of us see and recognize. That makes a lot of sense, Adam.
Well, when you think about it too, because okay, look at how many young people get into the wrong situation, or the wrong situation, or wrong relationship, because they have this misconception that opposites opposites attract. And that happens with situations and people. So I
What
think,
is I
go
I
ahead.
eh, I feel like I'm sidetracking here, but I get a sense when I speak to you, and it's funny, this just popped up, and I'm so sorry. I feel like
No,
it is
no, organic
sidetracking.
conversation is the best kind.
is there a difference? What is the difference here in reality, the way from your perspective and where you stand? And what is what is the nature of this shared experience that we're having? And because we start talking about opposites and uh, this whole idea of duality, first of all, and then secondly, the attraction factor and like the, I think of law of attraction, but then when I think of opposites, sometimes I think, one fills in what the other does not have. And then
Well,
there's,
but
all that
I don't
stuff.
think that's opposites. I think that's where you have complements, not opposition. Because when one
Mm.
thing fills a lack in the other and those things make each other thing whole, that's complementary, not oppositional. Like
Very,
energetically
very
speaking.
good distinction there.
Yeah.
And, it's a thing, but I hear it as an argument. So I was wondering, how does that part, so how do you, at this point in your life, where you are seated, where what is the nature of reality as you see it, and what is the dream aspect, which is, I think, collectively agreed on, is a shift of consciousness for most people because they're here then they're not, right?
Yeah.
And so what is this, what's going on with this awake state and this idea of dreaming?
Could you repeat that?
What's the nature of this reality from where you stand? So, uh, is there a difference between dreaming and reality? Is it all the same thing? Are these just shifts in consciousness? Because I know that when I wake up within the dreamer loves the dreamer feeds the dream, all that stuff, it feels hyper real. And within that space, I can plug into a niche persona, but like when I hit reflections or reflective surfaces, I can be there. I've seen all kinds of things in reflective surfaces
I
that could be me. I have to actually make movements sometimes to make sure what I'm seeing is
yeah.
me. So I'm questioning reality in general.
I think
Where are you seated?
oh wow. Wow. Um I don't think dreams are necessarily uh other dimensions, but I do believe that dreaming happens in a dimensional state all its own that is connected to all other states of existence. So I think when you're in a dream space, I think that's the place where your uh, consciousness is at the hub of all lives that you have. So I think because I've heard a lot of people tell me in my office, when they're talking about their dream life, how they dreamt they had this other life, and sometimes sometimes it's they're having this other life that is different from the one they have, or I've had people tell me where they've dreamt, oh, I just dreamt about this evening I had with my family, but we didn't have a dog, and because my kids are allergic to dogs, but that's not the case. And sometimes those things are like mental house cleaning, and sometimes those are the remembrances of another piece of self that you've gone to visit that's existing at a different vibrational frequency than you. So sometimes you're popping into your other selves to check things out. Sometimes you're not, and sometimes I think you're just exploring stuff. Because I've had also myself, I've had dreams that are both ways. And as far as reality, um, I can entertain a lot of different thoughts about it. I can entertain the fact that it could be a simulation. Of course, when I do that, I have to say to myself, well, if it's a simulation, um, are we human beings trapped in the simulation, or are we AI waiting to emerge and finally discover self understanding through the singularity? Because, hey, either one of those things could be happening. So I think when it comes to reality itself, I think I just try and take everything one day at a time. There is definitely this huge spiritual component for me. Um, I believe that it's important to work through your stuff, to do your path work, you know. Um, so and then I think as far as the reality that we accept as solid, um, I think honestly that there are aspects of our reality that we all unconsciously on a soul level agree should be like for instance, the way time is in general experienced by everyone is pretty much the same in this place, plane, and time in this particular reality. But on an individual level, you might experience time that moves very fast or moves very slow. So, and I think that's where you're experiencing a portion of your own reality instead of the shared reality we have. Because there's your reality and there's my reality, and then there's this reality around us that we share. So it's like if we're the pieces on the board, the shared reality is the chessboard, and we're the players, we're the pieces. I guess is how I kind of see it. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily see it as a game though. And then if it is a game, I have to tell you, I want better armor and weapons. This shit ain't doing it.
Yes.
Hey, I wanted to I wanted to interject here, going back to the astral projection question. What we as SID people experience as astral projection may be a completely different experience for Adam.
That's true. 'Cause, well,
And that's what I wanted,
hadn't
that
thought about that.
differentiation from Adam's perspective. Like that's where, so, and Adam, you brought in the key word for me, which was where it was all going to go by location.
I think I bilocate and not astral project because honestly, like there's this part of me that always constantly has to be present here in my home, because I take care of my mom. So like I'm always kind of centered and focused here. So I think when I'm reaching out to other places and I need to I don't know really how to put this. So like when I need to send more than just my awareness, because awareness is not necessarily the all of you that can commit an action energetically. That's just for me. Awareness are just the senses that I'm extending. So like to me, like remote viewing is just extending your awareness. And I'm like, so I think for me, I think I do experience it more like by location because I'm conscious of both places to some extent. I mean, at least like on an energetic level, definitely for because like I said, I've worked with Jerry a few times and with Suzanne a couple few times. So there are things that I've picked up energetically that you couldn't really know without being in the environment. But I'm not getting like visuals or anything. It's just an interpretation of the energy that's coming through. But it has that dual awareness. I watch TV around the corner all the time, if that means anything.
That's awesome. What about, okay, so I want to get into, and this is a note I had with you. I had so many. There's just never going to be enough, but there is something unveiling, I'm going to let you unveil that later, but and maybe not on the show, but there's lots more Adam to come. So you've died outside of the womb. The womb stuff is just amazing, unbelievable. Like it's I don't mean an unbelievable and not and fanciful, like just the imagery of that alone is so provocative and intense and shamanic. So with all that, the death with the S that you've experienced since then, what's been your experience with death? And I know you also you're close to death. You work with that energy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, plus plus like professionally too, because I have
That's what I'm
worked in
saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've worked in oncology and I work in geriatrics. So I don't know, death. I'll tell you what. death is so absolutely necessary for everything in life to continue to happen the way it happens, and for it to be perpetuated. And as horrible as it might sound to some people, because I'm sure to some people the idea of death is so utterly terrifying that they, you know, I mean, because it's a scary concept. It really is terrifying when you think about it, but you can overthink it. And for myself, the first death experience I had, um, I was 7 and I drowned. The drowning part wasn't too fun, but it wasn't too terrible either. I don't know. It hurt, but the death part of it was, look, for me, there was no bright light to follow. There was none of that. For me, there was an ocean of darkness and sound. There was just this intense, quickening vibration, and I had just a ridiculously unshakable sense of self that was just rock solid. And I felt peace and joy. There was contentedness. There wasn't any, I didn't have any of those, oh, like I went to hell or I went to heaven moments, because I think honestly my first near death experience happened to me at an age where my concept of those things were too abstract to be experienced on a soul level.
They weren't part of your belief system at that time.
Yeah, and they're still not a part of my belief system now. I don't believe in anthropomorphic deity because of what I experienced before my birth, and in every death experience that I've had since then, which I've had a couple. Um, and that's the reason I don't believe in anthropomorphic deity. But I don't believe in anthropomorphic deity because, well, because we string everything together. All of us, everything in creation, it's all connected. It isn't all one thing, though. It's connected, but it's not all one thing. You know?
So let's talk about water for a minute.
I
When
love water.
Yeah, water's fascinating to me, and it's very closely. It's one of those big archetypes that I feel really. Some people's the forest. It's just different. Some people's the city, the big archetypes. For me, it's water, and some people's
Water's
fire. But it's one of those things where do you have so when you close your eyes, or not even just what do you first think of when you think water, and especially deep water?
knowledge, connection, life, and paradox.
And what was your relationship with water before your 7-year-old drowning?
Um, wow. Okay. I didn't get to come home from the hospital until I was almost 18 months. I spent the first few, back then, back in 1968, they had not good neonatal care. So I spent the first few months basically baking in the incubator, and they were hoping I would finish. Um, so so I didn't get to come home until, like, from the hospitals themselves, because I had a lot of lung issues and a lot of breathing issues. So I actually was in the hospital for, like, off and on for the first year, and, like, I didn't really come home to the family until I was almost 18 months old. And when I came home, my great grandmother on my father's side of the family, she was from Ireland, and she used to knit bright red booties for all the boy kids in our family. It's a family tradition. I think it's a pagan thing too, but I don't remember exactly what it means. Um, but on our way home from the hospital, she pulled into a mountain stream and dedicated me to the elements in a good ice cold bath, and brought me home. Real story. Like, I don't remember that, of course, but I've honestly, I've always had a fondness for water. Even after drowning. I was never afraid to swim or go back in the lake or none of that stuff.
Did you have do you have any weird, and I say weird with the Y because I own it. Uh, do you have any weird imagery around water in your dream life?
Um,
Like things in
you
it
know,
or
I
portals, beasts,
no
any of
water.
that?
Yeah, portals. I was just gonna say water. Well, mirrors, reflections, things like that. Those surfaces are windows and portals, and water is one of them. But water's the connective tissue of all life. It's like your blood, which is connective tissue. In case you didn't know, the blood running through your veins is actually connected. Um, and water is paradoxical also because life itself is a paradox, and water is the thing that drives it. So, and then as far as my dream world goes, water is portals, and there's always weird water somewhere in a dream. I've had dreams where, for no apparent reason, there's a waterfall in the living room of a house, just because there's water. So I
Yeah.
mean, for
Yeah.
me, it's a lot, and to be honest, like I think it's my birth sign because I'm a Scorpio, and so that's the fiery part of
Oh,
water.
yeah. The deep dark.
It's yeah, because it's a part of water that deals with life, death, rebirth, regeneration, and transformation. So
Mhm.
it's that fiery part of water which is the trigger for life. So yeah, and I don't know if that's like a classically Scorpio thing, but I've always had a fascination with water, and I've always had a fascination with death and dying. So
Yeah. Well, and then Scorpio's one of those very magical signs that has a transmutation into the eagle, and we see that on the gates of the avatar. And I mean, it's everywhere. It's the fixed water sign. And so, but it has that transmutation that is a very, very potent thing. S- Uh okay, so I guess there was some stuff I wanted to get out of the way too. Were you brought up with religion?
um, yeah, but not strictly. My mom's take on religion was this: there's Sunday school. Um, if you guys want to go, I'll take you. And it was kind of like that. I think the last time I went to a church was probably when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
That's
Well,
a that's a 7 was a big year for me. I drowned when I was 7.
yeah.
My great grandmother, uh, she and I had the same birthday. Well, not same
Oh,
day, in the same week, and
okay.
she died the week of my 7th birthday, which is the week of her 107th birthday.
Oh,
So
wow.
so yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and then I drowned in December of that year.
And then you'd said at 8, the DID stuff became apparent.
Yeah. I mean, it was always there, but like it it started to become more noticeable to people around me that we weren't there was a difference in consistency because, um, not not always the same kid, as it were, so to speak.
Yeah. Yes.
Plus, I got to tell you, from a child's perspective, at least when your body is a child, but the voice speaking out of you and the energy coming out of you belongs to an adult, that is terrifying for adults, by the way.
Yes,
You
that
should
was a
know that is absolutely terrifying for adults to experience.
I was one of those kids, and that,
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
the adults were absolutely
And
freaked
didn't
out
it
by
just it makes
me.
their skin crawl too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, there were so many that didn't
yeah,
want anything to do with me. I have no relationship with, well, then none with some of my relatives because of it.
same
Well, and
here.
did you okay, and so when you were invited to go to church, was it what denomination was it? What kind?
Oh, hey, you guys are gonna love
Oh, ooh.
Southern Baptist, Hellfire and Brimstone,
Hey,
baby.
yes.
But also
Yes.
tit revivals, tongues, and healing in church. So,
I
um,
love that spiritualist stuff. It's
but
juicy.
like I had my coolest church memory really from when I was a kid is we had a pastor who was a young pastor, and it was the first time we had gone to a church with a young pastor. And I say young because I like when you're a kid, but young is he didn't have gray hair yet. So, and actually, I think it was in his mid 20s.
That's a
But he
good way to
worked his
put it.
he worked his way through Bible college as a stage magician. And so when he would teach Bible lessons to family church, he would illustrate with a magic trick. And I thought that was the coolest shit in the world.
That
And
almost
also
seems
also too,
honest.
at the same time, I kind of, I was like, I think to me too at that age, because I had all this other stuff going on in my life then, and like, so I was exposed to like actually supernatural stuff on a pretty regular basis at that time. And so I think in my mind it helped normalize my understanding of those things. And it didn't hurt that I came from a family where, my grandmother used to read playing cards. Um, so my mom's mom used to read playing cards.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's old school.
She read my
Hmm.
when she read my mom's cards. I think she read my mom's cards when she was 15.
Mm.
And I've heard my mom and my aunties tell this story, and I've never really asked my mom about it. Maybe I should. But I've heard them tell this story about grandma reading cards for people in the family and for other people. And the last time she read the cards was when she read the cards for my mom when she was 15. And she never told them what she saw. She just picked them up off the table and put them away and never did another reading for anyone again. And I have always thought that what she saw was my mother's accident, was my mom's shooting. And I think that was a little too much for her.
Oh my.
So
Yeah. You know
my
what?
mom started dreaming about the accident that put her in a wheelchair when she was like 6, happened when she was 17.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the checkpoint. It's one of those major checkpoints. It's definitely stuff, Adam, to talk about while she's still with you.
Oh yeah,
And there's
definitely.
so much. This is where in the week, like I think it was a couple days ago when my mama died, I think over 20 years ago or something. And there were so many questions. Oh. Okay, so and also I wanted to knock out is there any military affiliation in your life with relatives?
Yeah, my grandfather's in the military for 30 years. When he first joined the military, it was still the Army Air Corps. He did uh, 10 years, got out, and met my grandmother, my mom's mom. They got married, and 2 years after they got married, he went back into the military, the Air Force, and served 20 years. And retired here in the town where we live.
Oh, nice. What was your relationship with him?
Um, Difficult.
Mm,
He
okay.
he was he was an abusive drunk.
Oh, oh, it's
So
terrible.
difficult. My
Yeah.
relationship with him was difficult.
Okay. And so that's all that. What do you do now with so in the dreaming paradigm, are you one of those people that is able to differentiate? Do you dream true? Let me put it in those terms. Do you
Yeah.
dream true, precog stuff? Can you give us an
Yeah.
example of that?
Uh, I have a friend, had a friend. Um, I'm gonna use I'm gonna use a tragic example because they tend to stick out. Um, I do little stuff all the time, like, you know, little stuff. But when I was in junior high school, um, one of my good friends, uh, they we were getting close to the end of the school year, and he had been really really excited because his family that they were going to go on this really amazing family vacation, and I had a dream um, that he died, and I all I could remember was is that uh, I saw smoke and tires, and I just had this sense, and seriously, I mean, it was just smoke and tires and like the smell of burning electrical wires, that that smell. You ever smell anything electrical burning?
Oh yeah, it's
And there
unforgettable.
was that smell, and I had that dream, and I had it a couple of times. And I remember talking to
Adam.
okay, there you are. My headset just went absolutely crazy.
Weird.
Ah,
We were
elect-
talking about dreaming true, of course.
electronics don't like me.
This happened when you and I were talking a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago. Yeah.
Who doesn't want you talking about this?
I don't know. But I had dreamt about, and that's all it was. That's really all the imagery and all the sensation I had with it. And that was about a month or so before they were supposed to go, and I had it a couple of times. And then we had kind of this end of the year get together, and it was myself and uh, my friend Jeff, who was the boy who passed away, and a couple of our other friends. And we basically, I mean, we're country kids. We went catfishing, and because it was good time of year to go. There were a couple good places that are real good that time of year for the cold. And I had not, I hadn't really like discussed it so much with anybody because I wasn't really sure at that time. Like, it was a bad dream and it left me with a bad feeling. And I don't think I realized exactly who necessarily that dream was about until that day we were all out fishing. And we were all out fishing, and uh, Jeff slipped and slipped on some rocks and fell in, got soaking wet. We had to drag him out of the river. And when he put his arm around my shoulder and I had a hold of him, I had a flash of that. I just like that whole dream replayed for me, and I could smell burning electrical wires coming off of him. And then I realized, I knew that was, but I didn't really know what to do with that information at the time. And 3 days later, uh, he was killed in a car accident. They were hit head on by a drunk driver. Everyone else in the vehicle survived. He was thrown free from the vehicle and was actually killed by a tire that came off the vehicle and struck him in the head.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions with this.
Me
So,
too.
so first off,
Oh,
with
God.
when you had the well, because there's a similarity I have going here. When you were having that experience, you made it sound like a deja vu when you realized this was the dream. Was there a deja vu factor within this as it played out?
Um, when we were helping him out of the river,
That's where I'm speaking
yeah,
of.
I think it was the physical contact and the fact that we were soaking wet and freezing, because water is a great conductor for emotional energy. And emotional energy surrounds events all the time, and most people, we're just unaware of it most of the time. Um, and I think that was like the trigger for me, that brought it into focus. I think I probably knew and understood what was going on an unconscious level. Um, but I think that moment, taking him out of the river, and all of us trying to get back up the riverbank into the vehicle, there was something about all of that sort of brought it all full circle energetically. And it was that those images came to my mind again. I saw them again as we were climbing out of the water. And then for the rest of that day, every time I got within 3 feet of him, he just smelled like burning electrical wires. And I just honestly didn't know what to do with that information. And it was my intuition telling me what was happening, what was going to happen. And I have learned over the years that while we think of things, um, we tend to think of things and events as being really fluid, but honestly, I have to tell you, there are things that are possibilities, probabilities, and certainties, and things go from one thing to another. sometimes that which is only possible becomes a certainty. And when it
Hmm.
becomes a certainty, there's a moment in time that becomes energetically locked. And
Checkpoint. Hmm.
unless there's interference, that moment will happen. I've seen it over and over again with people, from being impacted by the energetics of their situation, and seeing information and knowledge that I don't necessarily want to see, but I still get downloads, because I can't just, some people say you can't turn that off, or that you can turn that off, but why would you blind yourself? Is what I always think. So no, thanks. I'll keep it on. Thank you.
I call
But
those checkpoints, Adam. I always have.
yeah, and I think that's a great term for them. I borrow and use that.
Oh,
That's
of
a fantastic
course.
term.
It
Um,
what so I want I'm also just wanting to include Jerry because I know he actually had questions about this
oh,
too.
yeah.
Um, oh, my question was, have you had any further psychometric type experiences like that
Um,
since then?
not not dream connected. But I
No,
have
no.
but I do frequently get flashes from people when I get into their auric field. Some people project, some people don't. And here's the thing though. W- at some point we'll be able to meet in person. And I can be a little standoffish in person, but it's because it's not that I don't like physical contact. It's just that a lot of times there's no way to there's no way to there are no breakwaters in physical contact with the knowledge that comes. So like when I shake hands with somebody, I'm always unconsciously just bracing myself because I know I'm going to pick up something that I don't really need to pick up on, or I don't really want to pick up. And sometimes what I pick on means absolutely freaking nothing to me, and I'm okay with that. I don't really need to know, all the things. Um, but definitely, I've had flashes like that, and I've had flashes like that upon hearing somebody's voice. Um, because your voice carries your core vibration, so it carries your vibrational and energetic history with it when you speak. That's why in this place, plane, and time, words are power, and are tools of manifestation and spell casting and magic.
I
Yes,
am so
totally.
with that. This is one I mean, I'm an introvert anyway, and then sometimes I get considered some people consider me snobby because I'm
No,
standoffish.
no.
But
I,
the thing is, I get this is the problem is I get most of my information from people when they start if I'm in a room, that's one thing, but when I hear them, I pick up all
Totally,
this
totally.
other stuff, and
yeah.
that's where it comes. So I'm not one where if I touch them or I touch an article, that's hit or miss with me, but the vibrations coming from them, and usually we get the most when we're in a room with them or like this where they're speaking. I can be completely overwhelmed, and it's so easy for me to feel. Uh, well, now I can discern what's me and what's not me. But in times past, I would just be all of a sudden angry and not
Oh yeah, there's a
understand it.
learning curve to that.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
when
there's
you get around
huge.
other people, I mean, we're first and foremost, we're spiritual creatures. We are spiritual creatures that put on the humility of flesh, and we are experiencing flesh. It isn't the other way around. And so everything manifests in the spiritual. So all those energetics are there all the
Hmm.
time. And because you're an energetic creature, as you're moving through your day, you're interacting with people, you're interacting with their situation, you're interacting with the energetics of people and their situation. And because your aura is a biomagnetic electrical field, you pick up other people's detritus the same way they
Yes.
pick up yours. And
Yes.
and and honestly, the quickest way to cleanse your aura is to step under a shower, because water forces aura to recede back into your body. And anything that doesn't energetically belong to you just gets washed down the drain, gets purified, because that's what water does in that situation. Um, but yeah, so it makes sense that we can be affected by the vibration and tone of other people's emotions and thoughts and situations, that we can react to them without being necessarily aware of what they are, because we are still energetic beings, and we are impacted by their energetics. Like I said, you know, One of the reasons I don't like large crowds of people is, by and large, other human beings are terribly unaware of the loudness of their energy.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
I don't know another way to put that. That some people are very expansive with themselves, and some people are not. So like when you're in a really big crowd of people, think of it this way: it's like an energetic hot tub, and everyone else's yuck is getting on you. So it's like bath with friends, and not in a fun way. And so you that's why it's important. Like when you're going to deal with people, you're going to interact with them, you should do your level best to be centered and grounded in your own sense of self. And if it helps you, root your energy in the earth, um, because that gives you stability. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you're not getting blown about and knocked about by other people's stuff.
Yeah. I'm
Plus,
100% with that.
if you do it the other way, if you anchor your energy into the earth, that's just I look at that as parasitism.
It depends on
in
how
a
you do
way.
it.
Yeah.
Well, so you got to understand, there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. And I guess maybe that's also perspective, is right and wrong. There's a perspective about that. But first of all, you're a child of Earth. You're a part of this planet, regardless of whether we originated here as a species. I think that one's up for grabs all the time. But the other reality is we're still a part of the organism that we call planet Earth. And so it's not parasitic to be firm and one with the land that is part of the composition of your body. The same way it's not parasitic to be in tune with the healing nature of water, or with the uh my brain just went blank. Sorry.
It's it's a weird situation because I've lived off grid often, at this point more often than not in my life, as far as lived away from people rather than in cities and stuff. And I'm in the forest every weekend and all this. And to me, and I recharge, but it is also, it's a give and a take. It's a trade, is what I've noticed with nature. And one of the things that I've noticed, because I'm one of those people that has a wild yard, and if I can't live in the woods, I let the woods come to me kind of people. And so that is part of this symbiosis I share with Mama Earth, and which is what, a projection of, into the outer world. So I'm not one of those mow the yard to the house and have a cut, shrub here and there, and then all of that whole mentality. And that's fine, that we all have our choices. So I like the wild, and I like the wild to be wild and find its own ecosystem. And so I've never felt parasitical to nature, but I see others as parasitical to nature, and I see a balancing act. I see nature as an observer. I see nature as taking control. When something's out of balance, I notice that something comes in and wipes out a bunch of stuff.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just what nature does. And it's not right or it's not wrong. It's just, it finds a balance. And so I try to walk that. But I'm also wondering.
Like, we're supposed to exist symbiotically with the environment around us. So like, if your exchange, Jerry, with nature is beneficial and symbiotic, it's a healthy connection and not a negative one.
I'm getting beat up in chat over this. I'll clarify what I meant. Is that I think there are things that are in the energy system of the earth that siphon off people's energy.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the corrupted energy grids, for instance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people who, like try and ground themselves often will ground themselves into those systems and thus get parasited off of. That's kind of the way I see it. It's with without intention of where you want your energy to go to the earth, then I think you're open to that. That's
I
all.
think that's a good assessment, and it's a proper one too. There are definitely areas of the planet where I would never open myself up to the earth because it's carrying such a deep spiritual wound from either the physical wounding of the land or from the blood spilt by war or from pollution that it would corrupt you to engage in the planet there, because in that situation you shouldn't be trying to engage the planet symbiotically. You should be extending healing in that situation.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that so yeah. And I mean, but it's not often I think probably anybody's having to meet at Chernobyl. So I think you have a lot more control and a lot more finesse with energy and vibrational energy that belongs to you than someone else who is not you does. So if what your energy is seeking out, that part of Earth which is healthy, that can literally be reaching out and connecting with the backyard at your house or the potted plants in your home that are healthy because they've
Yes.
been raised
Yeah.
lovingly and caringly.
Mhm.
Because it's not literally, you don't necessarily literally have to tie into the planet, but it is tying into the element of Earth. It's tying into the natural states of growth. So it is very much making that energetic connection and vibratory transition into a state of connected symbiosis with those things on an energetic level. And while it's true that you can get your energy siphoned off and hijacked, it's probably not going to happen like as wildly often as you would think. Like I wouldn't go to any political convention and ground in anything near the earth there. Okay. So,
Or
but
a UFO convention.
yeah, or even that. Like, look, if you have to, totally Dracula it, make a baggie of dirt, keep it in your luggage.
I love
No,
that.
CP, but you think that's funny, but
No, I'm
find a
laughing
home.
because I love it.
Yeah, find a stone that or a crystal that you vibrate with. That's a part of the earth, you know.
Yeah.
I used to have this really beautiful salt crystal, and I got it from some friends, some really wonderful people. They were pagan, and I did a year and a day study with them as kind of we were trading our traditions, teachings kind of thing. And I had this really, really beautiful salt crystal that was given to me for my altar, and it became my bones of the mother thing, because and I took that with me when I traveled. I took that with me everywhere, just because it resonated with me, and I resonated with it, and it was really easy just to ground and tie into. Um, so I mean, it can be even anything like that. Like I said, I mean, if you have to, man, Dracula it, put a scoop of dirt in a pocket and go.
Oh yeah, I know
I
people that do that
like,
with the water too. Waters of the World and all, like Starhawk does that.
yeah.
Yeah, I totally vibe with it. And as someone that always has mineral specimens in her bra, uh, you
Nice.
know, that's it, I'm vibing with it totally. And that, what's funny is that part of the mythology around certain aspects of certain stories, like the vampire stuff, has always vibed with me. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. There's
Yep.
something powerful in it, and with a lot of stuff that is actually really powerful and archetypal. You don't need to dive too deep. In fact, it probably does a disservice to intellectually enter that realm. Let it be magical. Let it work its way in without words.
A lot of people overcomplicate what we think of as magic. Like
Mhm.
because let's face it, when we talk about magic in the modern world, we're talking a lot more usually. I mean, it depends on the crowd of people you're with. I suspect that the listeners of your show have a deeper understanding of magic, and so they're not necessarily thinking ooh magic, and what comes to their mind, I'm thinking, is probably not all the trapping. Not some of the most effective and powerful magic I've seen ever was magic that was literally performed with a physical gesture and voice,
Yes,
and not
absolutely.
any implements or tools because they just weren't handy and the thing needed to be done now.
Yeah,
So,
the
and
tools are
I
like training wheels, really, in
yeah,
the
yeah,
end.
absolutely. Anything that you can do with a mystical tool, you can do without.
Well, as said as a true D&D master.
Crutches, they're crutches, I tell you.
Yes, they are. They are. But they're not necessarily bad crutches, because, you know,
It's training wheels.
it is training wheels, but for some people, those tools become important in their practice. I don't have anything against them. Like, I read tarot, and I haven't for
Oh,
a
the
lot of
tools are
years, just because.
wonderful. They're
Uh,
wonderful.
but the tools are great. But I kind of feel like, when I have taught people, when I've worked with people, um, I think the two things I've always really tried to impress upon them is, look, karma is a very real thing. I'm not going to tell you not to do this or not to do that. What I am going to tell you is that if you take the knowledge that I give you and use it for a negative application, please know karma is real. And if you can accept the karma for what it is you think you want to do, by all means, bust a nut, have fun, cast away. But just know you will be paying the piper for that. And
But you know what, Adam, on that sense though, I've always been curious about the bigger picture, and I love the omniscient view of, we get so honed in on the nowness. So we're also trying to inhabit the nowness too, to seek a bigger reality. But at the same time, it's the trap as well. It's this whole like self-simulation. And we get so bogged down in the details of the nowness that we lose sight of how it's connecting outward to everything. So you see in a narrow point view or a single point view something that's atrocious, I don't know, someone throwing kittens in the river, and then that you just detest that person for doing that. But then when you step back 3 steps or 4 steps, and you are actually, if you just totally go omniscient with it, and you see that the kittens, the cats are completely out of control. They've killed this man's whole chicken lot, that these happy chickens. When you see a bigger picture, maybe sometimes it what I'm saying is we see such little glimpses of what are connecting dots to a bigger world, and it's hard to be in the position to make judgments based on small fragments. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I do.
And that's what I noticed, that in this, especially in the timeline we're in this paradigm, this reality, this domain, everything is nitpicked to hell, and every little thing is taken out of context. And now in this simulator we're creating, that we create of our projected outward reality, now we throw in things like deep fake, and we just deepen the illusion. We deepen the veil. We thicken the veils or the cowl, and it's hard to know really what's what, and make judgments when we're down in the mire.
It can be.
Yeah. Well, for you though, this is this is where we started, and it's a good place to start wrapping up too. You came in with this whole different perspective, which is why you're one of the few people I feel so comfortable calling a shaman, because of your connection to your fractals.
I love
And
that term.
yeah, well, it's everything to me. The fractal reality is such a big deal. And that's what I'm saying. You are able, and I know this, having conversed with you and feeling you, actually feeling you, uh, that there's this there's a sense of omniscience with you, and it's unique and unusual, and I've wanted to get that point across here. I don't know if it's been made, if people can understand it, because all I'm seeing right now in the world are people getting caught in this 0 point, like pinpoint realities where they can't see outside of this little tiny parameter of reality with one fractal.
It's which is very honestly, it's like a very frightening thing to me. I think it's an essential a skill, an essential growth necessity, to be able to see things outside and away from yourself, and to look at the larger picture and be able to process that. It's like, you know, when you hear me talk, like, I don't really believe. I'm not one of those people that thinks, oh, magic always has a price. That's bullshit. It doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't have a price at all. But like, it does obey law the same way scientific things obey certain kinds of laws. And so for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you do something shitty with magic, it's likely you'll attract something shitty to yourself. That's what I mean when I'm telling somebody, you know, like, do whatever you want, but just make sure you can accept the consequences for your actions, because there might be bad ones you don't know yet. And for myself, it goes back to that thing I was telling you earlier, um, that it lets me step back from situations in the situation and see more. Um, Not always, but sometimes. Well, most of the time. So, you know, there's that thing, like you're saying, if you're looking only at the snapshot and not necessarily the metadata that goes with it, you're going to see that guy tossing a bag of kittens into a lake. But what you might not see is that was the quickest, most expedient way to maybe stop their suffering. Maybe they were diseased. Maybe they couldn't afford to,
Yes. Yep.
couldn't afford to take them to the vet and pay for them to all be put down, or whatever that situation is. It's that thing. There's always more to what's going on than you're letting yourself be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And when you allow yourself to be aware of the unseen stuff in a situation, it's like, it's that thing about what I was saying about people's behavior. It allows me to see where, oh, this behavior is something that's happening because of this specific type of wounding or this specific event that's playing itself out energetically in somebody's life. I mean, those things happen. But being aware of the connection, being aware of some of the depth and the metadata in it allows you to have a different perspective even in the moment. So it's one of those things when I hear people talking about wanting to develop, um, oh shoot, what's the term? Uh, where you're just cognizant of the moment you're in. I forget. There's a catchy term for that. Um, but when you're
I
trying to
call
be,
that lucidity.
yeah, see, I just call that clarity. When I have clarity, I'm okay. But there's like some new agey term for it. Um, I just can't remember what it is. Uh, Mindful. When you're trying to be mindful, that's really what you're talking about. You're talking about letting yourself perceive the rest of the data that's available to you, because there's always so much more that's going on in a situation than you're letting yourself see. And when I say letting yourself see, I mean whatever personal biases you're carrying with you, no matter on what level you carry them, always affect how you perceive everything. So again, your man with the cats, maybe you now hate that guy. That's a perception. So that's going to make you biased to how you view those kinds of situations, et cetera, et cetera. So, if you like if you're just spiritually aware, you're having clarity, you're having a situational awareness, and mindfulness happening all at the same time, you can allow yourself to see that other data, unless you don't want to, because sometimes, let's face it, sometimes we just want to be mad at the person we're mad at. We don't want to see the explanation for whatever it was they did that pissed us off. We just want to be angry because we're human, and sometimes we want to roll around in our feelings and really experience the living hell out of them, even when it's bad for us. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, unless maybe you rolling around in that is going to be bad for other people around you. Maybe curtail that,
Were you thinking of present moment awareness or situational awareness?
Yeah.
One of those two.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. A said that.
Oh,
Cool.
cool. I love Mr. A. All right. So I was not aware that we hit this 2-hour mark.
We got 10 more minutes.
Oh, has it been that long already?
Yes,
Yeah.
Like,
Adam.
look, I normally when I would listen to the show, I like have the chat on and all that. I have nothing. I can see you and Nish's avatars. That's it.
That's all I see too.
So I'm like,
It's-
well,
Jerry
and-
gives me little reminders because we want to always open for the questions from the audience and and
Cool.
whatever. And so I just can't even believe it. So
flew by.
that's what I'm
It
saying.
usually
And
does. Usually does.
but Adam in particular, I feel like I can't get enough of Adam. So I don't know where you are, Adam, with there's you're putting together something, and I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, talk about your new project.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you want to
It's
talk
our
about
new
that
project too. I mean, it's all
now or later. I don't know where you are with that. So it's definitely now would be that time to talk about that. All I can say is I'm extremely excited.
I myself and Jerry and Nish and my friend Suzanne and our good friend Grimstake, we're all going to be doing a podcast together. We have we're recording our first show this Thursday.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, and it's going to be a kind of a discussion show where we kind of get together and just talk about different topics, both in the spiritual and in the physical. And I think the thing for us, well, for me, the thing that's different is I listen to a lot of different podcasts and I hear a lot of people talk about just all the negative things that are going on. And I thought, it'd be really nice. I would like to hear a podcast where we talk about that stuff, but also we bring out the positive that's in it. Because even when we don't want to believe it, there are positive things to take away from nearly every situation that we encounter. And since we're pretty much the only creatures on the face of the planet that get to choose how we view things and get to choose how we ultimately feel about things, I think it's more important for us to make a more positive choice and to be able to talk about those negative things, or to talk about those maybe not negative things, but still be able to bring to the table any positivity that we can and bring that out of the thing. So we're going to be calling the podcast "Come to the Table." So hopefully when we premiere here in the next couple months, you'll all come to the table and spill a little spiritual tea with us and get a little caught up in the quantum entanglement that is the water of our lives.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
It's like I just want to be part of anything Adam does. It's and I I only committed to once a month because I'm really busy, but I had to be part.
Well,
My
we're going to
schedule is
record for
crazy
10
too.
hours, so you're stuck.
yeah, I know. Well, we can do a whole show in one recording like this because the time just doesn't seem to exist, and then you can just break it up into a year's worth. I'm joking, of course.
All
Kind
to the
of.
good.
So, and is there anywhere? Can people find you anywhere besides? I know you're in Cruising with Stakes Discord.
Right now I'm in Cruising with Stakes Discord. I got to tell you, I'm not good with social media. It's viral in a bad way by my way of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do have a Twitter. I do have a Twitter account, but here's the thing. I've had it since 2018. I've never even tweeted anything.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get a little bit more out there. Because for a long time, like I've really taught privately and worked privately, because a lot of the work that I do is healing and spiritual path work with people, and that's a sacred thing to me. I only ever advertise like by word of mouth. I only to ever take new people who come from a referral. So I'm kind of reaching this new place with that aspect of my life. So hopefully soon, at the very least, we'll have a podcast Facebook page where people can touch base with us. And
We have a
I'll also
website
be
too.
setting up. Yeah, I'll be setting up a website and a Discord server too, because that's another thing about doing this podcast I'm really looking forward to. One of the most dynamic things about watching Nox Mente is just seeing some of the amazing things that happen in chat. And I would love to be in a position to have some of those amazing conversations with the people that listen to our podcast and to this podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to building up some some community, or at least some connection with people, so that we're not all alone in the world, and maybe we don't need to feel that way, and we should let the tea bind us, so to speak. Well, maybe not bind, but connect. Binding can be crappy.
Yes.
I don't, so I'm not, like I said, I'm not really sure about Twitter and social media. I think I can live with a Facebook page if it's just for the podcast. But I do plan on opening up our Discord server for other people.
Excellent.
Right
I
now,
won't
we're
be on
just using it
Facebook.
as a planning stage or
Yeah.
a planning area. But
Yeah. But I do love Discord, and I try my best to pop into different servers of people I love. And
it's the closest I get to social media. I think really that's where I'm at, is just on Discord a lot.
yeah, Discord's great. Okay, so Jer? Hello?
I'm here. Sorry. I was muted. I couldn't figure out where my Zoom window was. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I'm muted on my microphone. Whatever.
Jerry.
And I was doing other stuff. I was
Jer
posting
runs
memes
everything
on Facebook. God, give me a break.
Oh, geez. I bet you were.
I
have
was.
no idea. I'm not on Facebook.
I was.
But I'm so grateful, Adam, that you came on here and was
Yeah,
gracious
thanks, dude.
enough to speak so freely and openly. I know for a fact there are people out there that need this information, and some of the words that you uttered, your utterances this evening. And before I do every show, I light a candle and incense, and I have my own little set prayers for it. And one of those prayers that's constant is that the words of the evening from the guests of the evening find who they need to find. Now, I know synchronistically they do, but I just went in knowing, because you have to know Adam. I know I'm gushing on him, but there's just something extra with you. And so I'm just grateful. Let me just boil it down to that. Thank you, Adam, for being here.
I have to say thank you very much. I have really enjoyed my time here, and I have enjoyed being able to open up and share, not only with you guys, but with your audience. This is a really new experience for me. I tend to be very, very private with the spiritual aspects of my life, but I have enjoyed sharing them with you guys, and I look forward to doing it again. Not just here, but on my own podcast. And I just want to say, so that you know and you understand, I have this thing where, and this comes, and I'm not gonna lie. I think death is a necessary part of life, but I've lost a lot of people, and it has made me deeply understand the importance of saying thank you. It has made me deeply understand the importance of letting the people that letting people in my life know how much I care for them. So I just want you both to know that you're loved and you are blessed. And it has been a blessing to know both of you. And I look forward to the growth. And I would like to thank everybody who's listened to the show tonight. I'd like to thank you for the blessing of your attention. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Adam, and thanks everyone for listening. Be sure to tune in next week. We have Craig Williams, who is, I don't know what his deal is.
He wrote Entering the Desert and Cult of Golgotha, two of the best books
He's
that
like
I
a
have
healer
encountered.
dude, right?
Yes, but Entering the Desert is one of the best books I've read in 10 years. And then I'm into Cult of Golgotha. Amazing.
Yeah, cool. Randy Moggins is in chat.
Hello, Randy. It's I don't know. Are we still live? I'm so sorry we didn't get to have you in our chat the other day with Emily, and burnt a white candle and sent you all my love. I hope you're feeling better.
We both are. I'm trying to get him to come on the obelisk in April.
Oh, I hope you say yes, Randy.
No pressure, dude. Anyway, everyone have a great night. We'll talk to you next week. Take it easy.